My name is Justin Decloux, and I'm here today with
Will Sloan.
And you're listening to the Important Cinema Club. And Will, I would just like to say, Gong Hei Fat Choi to you and your family.
Well, thank you so much. Good tidings to you, too. It is Chinese New Year. It's the year of the horse.
Do you think my tonal pronunciation was there? Because, I want to say something like Gong Hei Fat Choi, but then that just sounds pretentious, and I'm wrong already as well.
I wouldn't know.
No, me neither.
Listen, here's what I know. When I listen to a Cantonese movie, I hear the sounds are much more like sharp. Sorry.
Be careful.
But when I hear a mainland movie, it's more like shong shay shou shou.
Yep, I can recognize it. And I remember having to come to that realization playing a Hong Kong Lunar New Year movie, King of Comedy, and playing it the VCD and being like, why do I hear two audio tracks? And having to unplug one and be like, which is the one that is more true to what Stephen Chow does? Which one is Cantonese? Which one is Mandarin?
Did you ever have the Video Asia DVD of Sammo Hung's classic film, Don't Give a Damn?
I did not know.
Released here under the title Burger Cop. Because on that, Video Asia, the greatest, the criterion of shit.
Yes.
They had the Cantonese and the Mandarin audio playing at exactly the same time. Oof. But the hack you would do, you'd plug in your headphones and take one headphone out.
Well, that's how those VCDs worked, is that the left audio thing was Cantonese and the right was Mandarin. So you had to plug out the one that you wanted to listen to, and it would only come out of one speaker.
Sammo Hung's Don't Give a Damn, by the way, is a film that is still too dangerous to put out on a boutique Blu-ray.
Who will put that out on a boutique Blu-ray label? Why is it dangerous? Search it on Google and you will discover it very quickly. Wait, did anybody do Pantyhose Hero?
No, but I actually have that on Blu-ray that I imported from Asia. So I do own it.
Now, if you're getting lost right at the beginning of this podcast, being like, what are these people? What are these movies they're talking about? I just want to let you know this whole episode is going to be about Hong Kong movies. Specifically, me and Will's kind of experience of how we came to them, what we enjoyed about them, and how we ended doing this episode about Lunar New Year movies. What, in your opinion, Will, is a Hong Kong Lunar New Year movie?
Well, first of all, the Lunar New Year is the most profitable time on the calendar for Chinese and Hong Kong movies.
It's like a July 1st weekend, for example.
Exactly. I mean, for many decades, Jackie Chan was the king of Chinese New Year.
Now, it should be noted as well that like the Lunar New Year phenomenon was something that existed in Hong Kong for cinema and then came to mainland China later. For this episode, we will only be focusing on Hong Kong films.
Although it's obviously huge in the mainland now.
Now it is.
And you and me have a finely tuned internal clock where, around, February or so, we start looking at what's happening at the multiplex and seeing if any of our guys, any of our old friends, if Panda Plan 2 is coming out soon. Even though Jackie Chan was like the king of Lunar New Year, he's not a Lunar New Year movie in the sense that we're defining it here.
Now, was Jackie Chan your entryway into Hong Kong cinema? Like, what was the film or films that triggered you to go, like, I want to watch more Hong Kong movies?
I think it was him. It had to have been. I mean, I think Jackie Chan's First Strike, also known as Police Story First Strike, was probably the first foreign movie of any kind I saw, aside from maybe the odd British movie. And then, so from him, Bruce Lee, the Bruce Lee clones, Kung Fu movies, Jet Li, stuff like that.
But what is pushing you to Chinatown for the first time? To I want to go straight to the source.
You know what?
And by source, I mean what is available in Canada.
It's Jackie, because there was that whole wave of Operation Condor and Mr. Nice Guy, the stuff that Miramax put out in the 90s. But then I'd hear about stuff like, Police Story. I can't find Police Story anywhere, and that one's supposed to be so great. Or any of those movies, like Miracles. I can't find Miracles. Where can I find that movie? But then also I had books like Once Upon a Time in China, the book, that is, by Jeff Yang.
So are you getting that because you like Jackie Chan and you want stories about that?
Jackie Chan, and also like John Woo,
So for me, it was 100% John Woo. And I remember the specific weekend that we rented The Killer and Hard Boiled. And we almost watched those two tapes over the 7 days that we had it, to the point that they were just in tatters, because we were we had never seen anything like this.
Oh, yeah.
And from there, it's I want more like this. That and Iron Monkey, which came in the wake of Kill Bill, because it was Quentin Tarantino presents Iron Monkey.
Yeah, and I mean all those martial arts movies, gun fu movies, stuff like that. That was an entryway. But then in these pre-internet days, it was like harder and harder to find the stuff. Like I had to go down to Chinatown, or there was my local library.
Yeah, which does have a Chinese section.
Exactly. So I saw stuff. I rented a lot of stuff from there. That's where I rented stuff like The Spy Dad by Wang Jing, you know?
Well, okay, so I want to highlight Wang Jing because I think he is an entryway into the wider world of Hong Kong movies, because I remember, Jackie Chan, I like Hong Kong things. I'm watching City Hunter. What is this? I've never seen a movie like this. Who is the person that made that? That's Wang Jing. And if you start going to explore the cinema of Wang Jing, you're opening a whole can of worms of like all the kind of popular things or, the trends of Hong Kong can be found in his films, and you can spider out from there.
I think increasingly on this podcast, we become interested in national cinemas, like beyond the 4 or 5 guys you know. Mm-hmm. Every country has its festival darlings.
Yeah.
And then some countries have somebody like Jackie Chan or Jet Li who become exported and become, and this is pretty rare, but like, they become, or like in Japan, it's like Godzilla or something like that. They become the face of pop cinema. But then beyond that, there's a whole realm of cinema that is most cinema that is like never meant to be exported.
Now, it's a little difficult for us to approach the films and speak to them in the way that they were meant to be experienced, because we are not from Hong Kong. A lot of the movies we're going to be talking about today were meant to exist in that year, and basically that's it.
But that's what's exciting about
Yeah, that's because we look at it and we're like, am I missing something? Can I get enjoyment out of it as an international viewer?
Well, and also like here, when people say, a summer movie,
yes,
we know what that means.
A blockbuster.
Yeah, exactly.
Independence Day.
A lot of action, a lot of special effects. When you say a Lunar New Year movie, which is like their equivalent, in terms of financial success, it's not that.
But I feel like if I see it and I read a review of someone who is more familiar or they're from Hong Kong, I can go, oh, yes, I know what you mean.
Right. A Lunar New Year movie, as I understand it, is a star-studded, lighthearted comedy, but a comedy that brings in elements of a lot of genres. It might have some action. It might have some melodrama.
Really, it is what we love about Hong Kong cinema, that it can be everything all at once.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like a masala movie, as they have in India. And similarly, it's all about the charisma of the stars. It's all about the general like lighthearted escapist tone of it. But I think it's also about the morality of it. It's about the traditional values that the films espouse.
I mean, we're going to talk about morality in some of these films. Oh boy.
I mean, a lot of these films, because these are Hong Kong movies in the 80s and 90s, they are about tradition and modernity. They are about Hong Kong itself.
Yes, especially some specific ones that are all about like, what does it mean to be a Hong Konger middle class, if you will.
And I think what's important about these Lunar New Year movies, as we define it, is exactly what you said. They're meant to exist in that time. They are disposable entertainments, but some of them have become enduring classics.
And I think that like, if you are given these movies as someone who speaks Cantonese, as someone that lives or is from Hong Kong, and your parents can instill value in them of like, hey, this was really important for me. This is why we rewatch it over and over and over again. And you go back to it. It can be like a warm blanket, even if you were not alive during that time.
I mean, I would speculate that a lot of the appeal of these movies is there's a time capsule quality to them, not just in how they depict Hong Kong itself, because most of these movies that we watched like are truly set against the backdrop of Hong Kong, but also because it's the stars and it's capturing the stars at this particular moment in their stardom.
And it's fascinating in that what value these movies have is often seeing all these stars sharing the same screen and acting very silly. That like, if you read some reviews, they're like, hey, I know it's not a good movie, but you get to see like Leslie Chung act super wacky. I love that. So that's why I want to see this movie.
And so like these movies, well, first of all, these are not the movies that people getting into Hong Kong film in the West.
No.
It's not hard boiled. It's also not In the Mood for Love.
No.
It's not stuff like that.
But if you are like me and you will eventually reach these movies.
Because you want to know, okay, what's Hong Kong cinema actually like?
And I think you also follow stars, whether it be like Chow Yun-fat or
Tony Leung
or Leslie Chung. But I also think that these movies will probably never be released by a boutique Blu-ray label, because there is not that genre element that people will gravitate like, oh, this is a martial arts film or this is a horror film. Like these are just straight up comedies most of the time.
Well, these movies do exist on streaming here.
One of them we talked about is on the Criterion Channel.
That's right. So I watched All's Well Ends Well from 1992 on Apple Movies, and it has subtitles. You can put the subtitles on, but it is the most AI generated,
that sucks,
wonky ass subtitle track.
Doesn't that take you back to watching a VCD with a subtitle or VHS where the subtitles are cut off on the side of the screen because it just zoomed in the picture?
It absolutely does, and I think for me it sort of underlined the fact that I'm a guest in this world. It's on streaming because there's a Chinese diaspora in the West who will watch this movie. The subtitles are a mere formality.
Now, do you have any experience with the Chinese Lunar New Year at all? Like, do you have friends, or did you ever go to a celebration?
Honestly, no. The extent of my experience...
We are the whitest guys.
Yeah.
The closest I got is that I was dating a woman named Charlotte for most of the end of college, and she was the person I was dating when I moved to Toronto, and I spent Christmas at her house, and because it kind of went into not quite Chinese New Year, but I remember being around when she was getting red envelopes, and I was like, what is that? She's like, oh, it's Chinese New Year. You get red envelopes. They're full of money. That's how it works. I was like, interesting. I once watched her dad, who did not speak very much English. I was like, how can we connect? How can we do something? I remember watching SPL with him and like looking over him like, is he getting anything out of it? He seemed to very much enjoy it. So.
Yeah. What about firecrackers? I understand that's a big part.
Yeah, I never went to any celebration. We did go to like a dim sum in Mississauga that was like, oh yeah, white people are not here during this period. Like, this is the dim sum that all the Chinese families go to. That is the closest I've gotten to that, and anything else will be like me wandering around Chinatown and being like, hey, wow, there's dragons and stuff that are moving around. There's a parade of some sort. That's the closest I've ever gotten to Chinese New Year festivities, which, to be honest, should be the closest, unless there's somebody bringing us to there. Because if I was like, hey, Will, happy Chinese New Year's, like independently, I'd be like, uh-oh.
Heck, why not? Let's celebrate. Well, we'll celebrate with, why don't we just start with the quintessential Chinese New Year movie, All's Well, Ends Well.
The title is spelled many different ways.
All's Well, comma, ends well.
But you also find it All's Well, That Ends Well, which is what the expression would be.
I like some of these Hong Kong movies where it's, and we'll talk about another one later, that is a sort of like bastardized version of a well-known Western title where it's like for example, Dangerous Encounters First Kind, which is such a great movie, but it has this hilarious title.
But a lot of the titles are kind of someone going, it needs an English title, just put it out there. And it doesn't always have any interaction with what the literal Chinese title is.
I do think, though, this is a good title for this movie because it has a structure and a plot kind of like a Shakespeare comedy.
And out of all the movies that we watched, I feel like this is the one that is the most like what I think of a Chinese Lunar New Year film is. Bunch of celebrities doing a bunch of wackiness. There's some romantic stuff going on, but like it's kind of a trifle as well.
I'll tell you, folks, the plot. So it centers around three brothers and their romantic misadventures. There's Moon, played by Raymond Wong. He's a businessman. He has a wife played by Sandra Eng, who he neglects. He takes advantage of her. He doesn't pay attention to her, even though she works very hard around the house, mopping and vacuuming and caring for the parents. The parents just sit in front of the TV all day. There are some funny gags there. So she leaves, and the house basically falls apart. Another brother is Foon, played by Stephen Chow. He's a radio host, a bit of a Lothario, and he falls in love with Maggie Chung. That's right, Maggie Chung, who is in here. She's a huge movie buff. She's constantly dressing as her favorite characters from movies. There's an early scene where she's wearing like a Madonna pointy bra.
Yep.
There's a scene where she's dressed as Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. I love seeing Maggie Chung in this because, folks, in the West, it's all about In the Mood for Love.
Yeah,
right?
or like Clean, something like that.
Yeah. But
where it's like serious.
Irma Vep.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's great, but also like 95% of her movies are this.
Yeah, Maggie Chung, for a long time, completely by her own design and not against her will, appeared in like 10 movies a year.
Yeah,
like to the point that she's in the Moon Warriors. I remember listening to a commentary, and I believe it was one of the producers was like, yeah, Maggie Chung, if you see her face, she's there. If you don't, it is a double because she was not available for most of this movie.
And then finally, there is the other brother, So, played by Leslie Chung, who you'll all know from Happy Together and many other films. And he is a very effeminate gay dance instructor.
Stretching so much to be effeminate, not like most people who worked with him said this is how he actually acted in real life.
That's right. And he has a rivalry with Theresa Mo as the tomboyish cousin. The two of them have a very intense rivalry. You can see them kind of meeting in the middle there in terms of their gender affect. And if I can just say about Leslie Cheung in this movie, it's a difficult balancing act because you see this character and you think, okay, Hong Kong movie from the 80s, or 1992 in this case, a lot of jokes about AIDS, a lot of jokes about rape.
Rape, yeah.
But the fact that it's Leslie Cheung, who was gay in real life, playing this character...
What?
I know.
And no one can see me doing the Home Alone face.
Playing this character imbues it with a kind of, like, he's not just a stereotype,
Yes,
you know?
but there's more of an honesty to it.
Yeah.
Even though I don't know how aware the public would have been at that time.
Yeah.
Like, why don't the tabloids, are they having a field day with Leslie Cheung? Like,
But I do think, like, he brings all of his movie star charm to it. It's not like he's not playing it grotesquely.
And he's not in it that much.
That's right.
Now, to compare and contrast, I watched a movie called The Eighth Happiness, which is kind of a proto version of this film. It actually has Raymond Wong in it as well. I'll get back to this guy. And Chow Yun-fat in a film directed by Johnny To. It's about a bunch of brothers that are also having a bunch of relationships that ping pong between a bunch of women. I really did not like the film. It's not silly enough. It's mean-spirited. Chow Yun-fat also plays an effeminate gay man doing a Warren Beatty style shampoo where it's like, I'm pretending to be gay so I can get women. He's cheating on his fiancée all the time, but they still have a happy ending. Kind of a noxious film. I watched it because it was like the biggest box office hit ever. And I was like, oh no, is this what all the Lunar New Year comedies are going to be like? No, because by the time All's Well That Ends Well, the early 90s, we have gotten into a silly mode, mostly propelled by Stephen Chow. So like this is, you know, a movie where each character is kind of doing their own thing. Eventually they come together. But like the bulk middle of this film is we're in Chow Town.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like pure Stephen Chow the entire time.
So this is 92. Where was Stephen Chow in his ascendant superstardom at this time?
Well, so All for the Winner was in the 80s. So we're past that.
So he's at his early peak. Like everything he touches at this time turns to box office.
Yes. And at this time, I mean, even in 92, okay, yeah, so All for the Winner came out in 1990, but people need to understand that Stephen Chow's career, like, was like a rocket because he, again, completely by his own accord, starred in so many movies.
This is important. Like before 1997, he was one of many people who tried to get a Canadian passport, and he was not allowed in because of triad affiliations.
So films that Stephen Chow is credited in, he doesn't star in all of these, but following All for the Winner, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then All for the Winner 1990, 15 All's Well Ends Well 1992. So like almost 8 movies. Some of them like Crazy Safari he only does voiceover in, but most of them he stars in, like Tricky Brains, Fist of Fury 1991, Legend of the Dragon, Magnificent Scoundrels, the sequel to God of Gamblers. Can you imagine? There's almost a new Stephen Chow film every month if you're in Hong Kong at that point. And you know what? Most of them are really funny.
That's why he doesn't make movies anymore, probably, because he's tired.
Yeah, he's like, I did so much. Do not keep making. And Stephen Chow's, I feel like the knowledge of him in North American or even English circles is very minor. Like, I posted a clip from this movie online. People are like, I love Kung Fu Hustle and Shaolin Soccer. And it's like, yeah, he has 100 other movies.
Well, I feel like I've said this before, but when I was reading about Hong Kong cinema when I was like a teenager, I always got the sense that Stephen Chow was almost like a do not enter here zone. And I was wrong to feel this way, but it was just because they were like, oh, his comedy, it's all wordplay, it's all local references. You're not going to get any of it.
Not true.
Up until like Shaolin Soccer and Kung Fu Hustle, that's more tailored to a broad international audience. And what I found in watching Stephen Chow's movies actually is, let's say there are 2,000 jokes. Yeah. And if 1,000 of them I don't get, there's still 1,000 that I do.
Yeah, because Stephen Chow's comedy is called Mo Lai Tao, which is like a word for almost kind of like silly speak, gibberish speak, but that also encompasses like tons of comedy that he does, especially in this movie. There are a number of sequences in this film that had me laughing out loud, like one where Stephen Chow is dodging a bunch of cars from being hit, and there's like, so he's dodging, doing a bunch of martial arts moves, and then a baby is going down the street. That's like, oh, yes.
What would you say is Stephen Chow's, this sound like an idiot question, but what would you say his appeal is? Because he's been called the Hong Kong Jim Carrey, but he's not as extreme a presence as Jim Carrey is. Like he mugs, but not quite as like aggressively as Jim Carrey. Like he's handsome. He has a kind of like suave charisma to him as well.
Well, one of the things about Stephen Chow, and this is clearly something that he brings himself because of, you know, it feels like his persona in all the movies that he worked with different filmmakers, is a deadpan comedy. That's something he does a lot, which is like Jim Carrey doesn't do that, right? In his comedy films, he's always big. But Stephen Chow can go from big to small within the same scene, and also Looney Tunes logic to a lot of the big comedy gags. The thing about Hong Kong films that works in somebody like Stephen Chow's favor that could never work for Jim Carrey is that there is an elasticity to the actions that can be taken. So for example, that scene that I talked about where Stephen Chow is dodging a bunch of cars, one of the comedic elements of it is that the Stephen Chow character is doing flips, he's twisting in the air, he's doing wire work, and that is accepted in these movies because it is just kind of part of the fabric. It's funny that it's happening within this context, but like if you saw Jim Carrey do that in Ace Ventura, you'd be like, what is going on? This is completely foreign to me. And I think that elasticity allows that kind of comedy to work in Stephen Chow films. And why Shaolin Soccer and Kung Fu Hustle like have been such successes on international audiences is that they are grounded in a kind of genre, martial arts, sports, just kind of like
more about slapstick and special effects
and like stylization. Yeah.
Than it is like verbal comedy and references, that kind of thing.
I mean, there's some Stephen Chow films that are almost all verbal comedy, like Hail, is it Hail the Judge?
Yeah.
Or like Justice My Foot?
Lawyer is another one.
Most of his films will have like 2 to 5 big comedic set pieces in them. The co-writer on this film, Vincent Koch, who is like a big, prolific kind of like Hong Kong guy, he hosts a show where he brings on like veteran Hong Kong producers, directors, actors now, and they kind of like wax about like, where's Hong Kong cinema going now? Dylan Chung always posts clips that he translates clips from. He co-wrote this film, and you can feel that like he is on Stephen Chow's wavelengths. I don't know if he's the one that's bringing that kind of magic. You know Vincent Koch, of course, the director of Jackie Chan's Gorgeous. I think that All's Well Ends Well is a good one to start with because it moves quick. You'll recognize Leslie Chung. You'll know Stephen Chow's shtick. While it's kind of like formless, all these movies are formless. It's kind of the nature of how they're constructed. And you will see things happen that you'll be like, am I supposed to know what that is? Is that a parody of it? Yes, probably. And I don't know what it is. Will doesn't know what it is. But I think this movie has enough enjoyment there. It's not a classic by any stretch of the imagination. I would not.
Although it's a classic to the people who watch it every year.
Yeah,
in Hong
sorry,
Kong.
I wasn't going to finish my sentence. For people like us, and it's not one I would reach for if I was going to recommend the Stephen Chow. But there's enough there to get that vibe of what these movies are.
I hear, and I'm sure our Hong Kong listeners, if we have any, could tell us that like that movie plays every year.
And there's multiple spin-offs like All's Well That Ends Well 97.
I saw All's Well Ends Well 2012 in a theater.
You did?
Yeah.
Why did you go see that?
I think for the same reason we're talking about them right now.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I know this brand, and Donnie Yen's in it.
Oh, he's in that one?
Yeah, and it was just like, yeah, what do one of these movies look like? And it was fine.
Yeah. You're like, not for me, really.
Yeah. But here's another one, also by Clifton Coe, who's the king of the Lunar New Year movie, a flagrantly commercial filmmaker. This is 1987's It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World. It's not 4 mads, it's 3.
Wait, okay, sorry. Before we get off of All's Well That Ends Well, I want to talk about one of the guys that watching the movie, I was like, who is this? Raymond Wong.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think this is important when you talk about the Hong Kong film industry, is that like, there is no like separation between like above the line, underline, people that are producers, directors. They will act in films, they will like star in films. And Raymond Wong is mostly known as the guy that founded Cinema City, which is what popularized a kind of Cantonese comedy, Lunar New Year films as well. I believe Aces Go Places was a Lunar New Year film. And that like he decided to be like, I'm just gonna star in the movies that I produce. I want to be the best friend of like Chow Yun-fat or Leslie Chung. And that's so funny to me that like Hong Kong, because we wouldn't associate that in like, can you imagine David Zaslav like stars in a movie that Warner Brothers puts out, like the big comedy or something like that?
I think we're gonna see this start to happen in the next 10 years as these tech barons like increasingly,
like Elon Musk is like James Bond's best friend,
or Jeff Bezos.
Well, remember that threat that he made that Jeff Bezos just bought James Bond so his wife could be a Bond girl in it?
Yeah,
that's funny.
I mean, I hope it happens. Why not?
And I asked Dylan like, what is the perception of Raymond Wong? Because if you look at his credits, he has like 70 credits, and he said he's just an old guard. He owns cinemas. He's just kind of always been around and has been that kind of cultural figure. And because there isn't like, the barriers in Hong Kong, or actually most countries, between like, you do this one thing and that's it. He got to act. He got to produce, mega producer, do all of these films. And he's just kind of always around. I'm kind of glad it's not like that in North America, even though people try to do it like The Rock. Yeah. But like, he doesn't have a musical career that is as popular as his acting career.
Let's see Steven Spielberg act. Why not?
And I think that's also important of that, like, None of the ones that we're talking about, are there any big musicians in them? Like Jackie Chung was in another one that I watched, and he's a big musician. But like, for example, It's a Mad, Mad World. This is one that I look and I go, all of these actors were probably famous for reasons that I do not understand.
Like they were on TV, for example?
Something like that, yeah. So what's It's a Mad, Mad World about?
Well, first of all, it was a massive hit. It made 27 million Hong Kong dollars. It was the first in a long-running series about the Pew family. The patriarch of the Pew family is Uncle Bill, played by Uncle Bill Tung. He's just Bill in the movie.
Now, if you watch Hong Kong films, you know Uncle Bill. He's basically the older figure that's around Jackie Chan all the time.
That's right. He's the head of the police force in Police Story. He's the uncle in Rumble in the Bronx. But here he gets to be a star.
Well, I feel like he was a star in his own way. And why he was in those Jackie Chan films was probably because he was associated with the Lunar New Year.
That's right, yeah.
Because those were Lunar New Year films, a lot of Jackie Chan's big releases.
But in this movie, he's a TV news journalist who is struggling financially.
So funny. The struggling TV news journalist.
Against the backdrop of this heavily modernizing China.
Yeah, All's Well That Ends Well and The Eighth Happiness, which I watched, those movies are about upper class people in the same way that kind of like Indian films are.
Well, yeah, like upper middle class.
Well, they live in like big houses and they have like affairs and stuff like that. Well, what's interesting of It's a Mad, Mad World is like this film centers the family, which is husband, wife, and they have three daughters in a very... I'm sure the audience is going to it like middle class life of being a Hong Konger. And they really underline this at the beginning of the movie.
Well, the thing is, this is a movie about like, the modernization of Hong Kong. I mean, the opening credits play to this like montage of Hong Kong as it existed at this time.
Yeah, kind of like documentary footage that they caught off the cuff.
And, this is a well-to-do family, but it's like, they're well-to-do in the sense that they're still always feeling the need for money.
But they even mention that they're like, hey, don't bang on the door too hard because this is like government-built property and it's not going to be able to handle. The walls are very thin. Like if they play music, it's going to bother other people. They're constantly being aware of like the perception of wealth, and they're always, and this is a big important part of the movie, gambling all the time, whether it be the lottery or mahjong. And
this is something that I think we as Western viewers may not feel on a gut level, where Hong Kong, the population exploded in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It went from like a couple 100,000 to many millions of people in just a very short span of time, many of whom basically came from, they were in a peasant class position when they got there. And then, the city built up and modernized around them because it was like this port city to the world. It was, the capitalist center of China, at that time. And I think this is a movie about those growing pains, or it feeds on those growing pains.
And it's also relatable to the viewer. Like a big part or a running gag is like, why take a taxi? Let's take a subway. The subways are packed. Like it's tough to get on it, but that's something it's like, oh, I see myself in these movies. And I mean, the film is about, oh, what if they won the lottery and won a bunch of money?
Right. But then the daughter gets kidnapped.
Yes.
And, like all these...
I mean, that's at the end of the movie.
Like all these Lunar New Year movies, it comes back to basic...
what's important.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Well, I think what's interesting about this film is that, like, some of the Lunar New Year films is people with more money, and this one, while they do win the lottery, they never get that money. It's all about like fantasizing, and here you're getting into more silly territory. And also, like, man, all the Hong Kong comedies I watch are all about like husbands that want to cheat on their wives, or in this case want to murder their wives. There's a bunch of really funny fantasy sequences with Uncle Bill where he's like, if my wife was dead, I could marry this beautiful woman. Oh no, but then that beautiful woman we want to go with a hunky husband. And then, oh no, what if that hunky guy was gay? Boy, there's a lot of that in a lot of these movies.
Yeah, not for me, but it's charming.
It reminds me of my favorite joke in Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, where they go see The Hangover 2, I think, or is it the first Hangover?
I think it's the first one. Paging doctor.
Yeah, and then like Matt Johnson's looking around like, oh my God, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's what it was at the time. That's what everybody was laughing about.
Can we talk about Chinese Odyssey 2002?
Yeah, so I felt All's Well Ends Well was kind of like more the upper class, big superstar. Mad Mad World was like in the 80s, it's like we're figuring out an identity for these kind of like Cantonese comedies.
And that one, it should be said, it's a mad world.
Yeah.
Did kind of like create the mold for this form.
And like, just to give a little bit of a timeline of the company that were making them, Cinema City, which was a big Cantonese company, they made The Eight's Happiness in 1988. It's a Mad World came out in 1987, but that was made by D&B Film Productions, which is Sammo Hung, John Sham, and Dixon Poon. There weren't that many companies in Hong Kong that were making movies, but like D&B you see all the time if you're watching films from 80s, Cinema City in the 80s as well. And then you come to the 2000s and you feel that like, this is post 97, what are these films supposed to be? Like, what is a local film at this point?
Well, Chinese Odyssey 2002 is interesting because it is a production of Jet Tone Studios, which is Wong Kar-wai's company, and it is a rare movie like this to come from them.
Well, okay. Something that people need to understand about Wong Kar-wai, though, is that before he made the films that made him famous, he was in these comedy mines. Like
he wrote for TVB.
Yep.
You know, I think he
wrote like Haunted Cop Shop 2, for example.
Him and Wong Jing were like side by side.
Yeah, he wrote a lot, which is so funny to consider that like Wong Kar-wai used to be a machine pumping these scripts out, and now he reached the point where like success was so stifling that he couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, but like, you know, As Tears Goes By is the sort of transition film where it's a genre film, but it's heavily informed by like, it's influenced by Patrick Tam, sorts of movies he's doing, but it still has genre trappings. And then Days of Being Wild is the movie that cements him as Hong Kong's resident art house guy.
Now, I don't know all the connection that they have. I'm sure they wrote a bunch of scripts together, but Jeffrey Lau, the director of Chinese Odyssey 2002, is a king of comedy of Hong Kong that doesn't get talked about very much. He's the guy who basically made Stephen Chow who he is.
And he's Wong Kar-wai's Wario.
Yeah. Oh, is he his Wario? They work together.
Well, but that's the thing. It's like, well, if you know Jeffrey Lau in the West, it might be because he made the Eagle Shooting Heroes.
Yes.
Which is, you know, Wong Kar-wai in 93, 94 spent more than a year making Ashes of Time.
Too long in an industry where an actor can appear in 12 films in 1 year.
It took over a year to make. It was this financial sinkhole, and to raise some money halfway through, Jeffrey Lau, for the company, made a parody film of Ashes of Time.
Using the same cast.
Same cast,
Before Ashes of Time had even come out.
The same source material.
Yes, and a huge hit. I think Eagle Shooting Heroes was very funny.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's on the Criterion Channel,
It is
too.
also on the Criterion Channel as well.
You know, it's funny. This is a digression, but like, I love Ashes of Time. But it's funny that in a 2-month break from the production, he was like, I'm going to clear my head. I'm just going to toss off something. I'm going to make Chungking Express.
Yes.
And that's the one everyone likes.
Yes.
You know?
Ashes of Time, I do think it has a long-lasting impact, especially in Chinese Odyssey 2002,
I know.
where it becomes a full-on parody. And what's wild about Chinese Odyssey 2002 is I think it is a moving use of the iconography and music to not just be a joke, but actually get you emotionally invested in a way that you don't even get in Ashes of Time.
I actually agree.
Yes.
You know, I think it does work on both those levels.
But I want to talk about Jeffrey Lau a little bit more because he's a guy that, like, I remember reading an article that Grady Hendrix had about him where, like, after they made All for the Winner, like, Stephen Chow begged him to make more movies with him, being like, please, like, I need your kind of guiding comedy instinct. And I was shocked to see Jeffrey Lau did not work with Stephen Chow that much. They did the masterpieces, Chinese Odyssey 1 and 2. That has nothing to do with Chinese Odyssey 2002.
And those came out in the early 90s, and they're spectacular, like, special effects comedies.
Yes, I think they're really good. And especially the second one somehow hits an emotional crescendo out of nowhere that, like, always moves me when I see it, which is funny considering everything that comes before. But Jeffrey Lau in 2002, I'm going to be honest, after the 2000s, he made a lot of movies. He's very adrift of, like, what am I doing? Do I have a comedy star? And this film is packed with stars because it stars Tony Leung Chu Wei, the Tony Leung that people listening know.
Yeah. I like that you specify that he wasn't Tony Leung Cafe, as if anyone assumed that's...
Is it Tall Tony or Short Tony? You know how they're
It's
called?
the Tony from the Wong Kar-wai movies.
It's a Tony who's in Hard Boiled.
That's right.
Or Shang-Chi, Master of the Ten Rings. I don't remember what it's called.
So the movie takes place in the mainland, and it was shot in the mainland as well.
Yes.
Tony Leung and his sister, played by Vicky Zhao,
Who had just had a kind of hit film in Shaolin Soccer. She plays the main woman lead in that film.
That's right. They're innkeepers. He's a bully, a roustabout, a rapscallion. She's a tomboy. They run this inn and restaurant. Meanwhile, Fei Wong, who you'll all remember from Chungking Express.
So this film is packed with Wong Kar-wai actors. Some actors who only made Wong Kar-wai films.
Well, I was thinking, it's like, I've seen Chungking Express so many times over the years, and I don't know if I've seen Faye Wong in another movie. Has she been in another movie?
She has, yes.
Because I felt like I was being reunited with an old friend who I hadn't seen in like 20 years,
I mean, the Empress in this film, or it's like the mother Empress, if you will, she is also in the mood for love.
Yeah, Rebecca Pan, yeah.
Who was a singer in the 60s and early 70s.
But yeah, Faye Wong is this princess from the Forbidden City, and Chang Che is the young emperor, her brother. And they're
also a Wong Kar-wai actor.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
They want to know what life is like on the outside, so they flee. They run away.
Now, this film does present a barrier to people if they're not familiar with this. I remember when it first happened to me, and I'm like, wait, the characters don't know that this very feminine person is a woman?
Well, yeah, I mean, all these movies reminded me of Shakespeare to varying degrees.
Yes.
But this one especially, because it is 12th Night style, like, gender comedy.
So it is not a remake, but it has all the characters from a Hwang Mei opera film called The Kingdom and the Beauty. Mm-hmm. So coming to it already, you're like, people may have association with these characters and what they're supposed to be doing.
So yeah, Faye Wong is disguised as a man. Vicky Zhao can be easily mistaken for a man.
Mm-hmm. And so the main thrust of the film is that Tony Leung is like, oh, my sister has fallen in love with this man who, when I look at him, my heart beats so strongly. It must be because I want my sister to get in a relationship with him.
Yeah, this one is like, it's a pretty out and out comedy.
Yes. Until it's not.
Until it's not.
Yeah.
Some of the gags in this movie I think are hilarious.
So funny. And what's kind of amazing about this film is you can have a bunch of Zucker Brothers gags and then none for 15 minutes.
Okay, yes, exactly. Tonally, it's very weird.
Because like,
it's a lot of different kinds of comedy.
Because it starts, and like when you meet Tony Leung, there are like 100 gags in 5 minutes. Like, oh, you were racing too fast on the horse when you were charging. Look, we have a photo, because we have a photo booth where someone draws really fast.
Yeah. Or like so then for 30 minutes, there are no gags like that. And then later there's a scene where Faye Wong and Tony Leung are like buried in quicksand, basically.
Oh, that is such a like Stephen Chow kind of gag.
It is. And there's like, they're there, who's going to save us? And there's this really, really old woman who's there and like, hey, can you get help for us? And then it's like 10 hours later, the old woman has barely moved 10 feet because she's so old.
But like, I think the magic of this movie, which I think it did get a North American release by like Sony Pictures or something like that.
Somebody released it because it got a lot of reviews in the West, but I don't think it made no waves at all.
I remember seeing it when I was getting into Hong Kong cinema in the early 2000s and being like, what is this? Because Tony Ching Soo Tung is the credited action choreographer. There is one out of nowhere action scene in this movie, and there's nothing else like that in the film.
And it's amazing.
It's amazing. But that's the thing, right? Which is these kind of movies are like, you know this stuff. We'll give you a little bit, but that's not what we're building the film around.
So I think this movie got a small push in the West for two reasons. One is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Absolutely.
And the other is Wong Kar-wai.
Are there parodies of Crouching? I'm sure there is, and I miss them.
But, it's like a period.
Yeah. There's like a Matrix parody at one point where I'm like, there it is. Yep.
Yeah. But it has certain of the Wong Kar-wai house style. Like the opening credits are the In the Mood for Love credits, basically. Obviously, as you said, there's an Ashes of Time parody.
Yes. There's voiceover throughout the film as well that is clearly parodying Wong Kar-wai, which is so funny that he's involved in the film seemingly closely because like his cast is in it. He's credited as a producer. I think story by Wong Kar-wai as well. And I was looking at to be like, was 2046 having difficulty at this point and they needed to like fill the coffers?
There's a reference to 2046.
There is, where they're like, file number 2046 says. There's also like a Rashomon structure to a lot of the jokes, and I'm like, what is this parodying?
Well, a lot of people don't know that at this time, like Jet Tone, the company, was also a talent agency, and it had, Tony Leung and a lot of other very famous people in the roster. So that's actually how Wong Kar-wai got his money. It wasn't the movies.
Have you heard, and I've only read about this online, I cannot confirm it because I was not there at the time, that like Tony Leung and Stephen Chow worked together very early on in their career. And the story goes that Stephen Chow stole a lot of his comedy mannerisms from Tony Leung.
That's interesting because
you can kind of see it in this movie.
I believe that.
Yes.
Because what you were saying about the way that he can go big or he can go small.
Yes. Tony Leung can do that in this movie as well.
Absolutely.
And I just want to highlight.
They're similar looking guys too.
They are. I think Stephen Chow, he can do like bigger faces, but like a lot of the comedy in this film is from Tony Leung like being serious and then be like, doing a big face or a big reaction to something going on. I had read that the film is dramatically moving and just the way, and they're just doing Ashes of Time. Like if you've seen Ashes of Time, the music is playing like, it's all about like identity and what it means to be. But I don't even think you need to know what they're referencing to
I
get
agree.
anything out of it.
I think fundamentally, for me, what makes this movie work is the charm of the actors. I think they're all great. They're all funny, but they hit the emotional beats as well.
But I also think something that I wanted to highlight watching this movie is that you often see people say, oh, that comedy doesn't work because it was too cinematic. And I'm like, get that shit out of here. Like, this movie is as cinematic as films can get. And at its core, it's just very silly. And I think that makes it funnier in the way that it's presented. And I think that's why at the end of the day, I love Hong Kong cinema so much, because they made that the formula. They can be silly. They can do impossible feats on screen. They can put them together and make something that is just supposed to be like, here today, gone tomorrow, but it can still work when we watch it in 2026. I don't know. Do we want people to check out the movie? I think Chinese Odyssey 2002 is really fun.
It's on the Criterion Channel right now. Check it out.
I think All's Well, Ends Well is really fun. I even think I had a fun time with It's a Mad, Mad World as kind of like an image into why was this a hit in the 80s? What is it saying about Hong Kong? What did people react to?
I also think, like, you can't call yourself a Hong Kong cinema fan if you don't watch a few of these.
Yeah, I think you need to. Like,
I'm going to be a fascist on that. I think that's the truth.
That you need to be in
You need
the
to
world.
you need to know what this looks like.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, read Planet Hong Kong, the David Bordwell book. Rest in peace. I think, is that the greatest book on Hong Kong cinema?
Oh, yeah.
Because I think he has like an entryway and an access and a way of describing like this particular moment where he's there, like in the 90s when things are starting to take off, that like no other book has been able to capture. I remember getting that book from the library and reading it, like learning about Wang Jing, learning about Choi Hark. He talks about, like, in, I believe, like the first chapter about going to a midnight screening, what that means. Like, Choi Hark is working up until the last minute redubbing Once Upon a Time in China 2, giving it different kind of like lines of dialogue. And I love all about that. And I think that does color like how I view Hong Kong cinema. So check out Planet Hong Kong as well for an entry point. Now, David Bordwell, later on in his life, would go down weird alleyways that he would get obsessed with about particular like Hong Kong things.
You're thinking of Initial D.
He loved Initial D, a
Yeah.
movie that does not exist anymore.
That was a huge hit.
Based on a super famous Japanese like property.
You know, I never saw Initial D.
We should do a Patreon episode on
I'd love to, because it's crazy I didn't, because Initial D was probably the only Hong Kong movie at the video store
got a North American
that I
release.
didn't watch.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like at my local video store in high school, I would watch any Asian movie that was there except that one.
Who was in Initial D? Because there was definitely some pop stars that I
Like
recognize.
Edison Chen.
Yeah, probably
perhaps,
Edison Chen. And Initial D was directed by the filmmakers behind Infernal Affairs. That was the other big claim to fame.
No, we should watch it. I'd love to.
Yeah, add it to the list along with
Yes, Edison Chen was in it, as was Jay Chu.
Yeah, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. An Andrew Lau episode, and we're going to watch the shit that he made. None of the good... well, we got to watch one good movie, but like Wesley's Mysterious Files, Initial D.
Yeah.
The king out there who has that one classic movie that will be his legacy and just paying the bills in every other direction.
Well, Justin, do we have any letters this week?
We do. As per usual, you can send us letters at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. Our first letter is from Andrew, and he goes, "Hey, Justin and Will. In seeking out foreign movies to stretch my cinematic horizons, I found to my pleasant surprise more and more are finding their way to free, easily accessible streaming options like Tubi, Pluto TV, Shout TV, the Roku channel, and even YouTube. Many older Korean pictures are on the Korean Classic Film page, and the Soviet-Russian giant Mosfilm has a YouTube page filled with both famous and obscure classics. And I just discovered there's now an official Shaw Brothers channel." There is? I didn't know there was an official Shaw Brothers channel. Unfortunately, with the latter, the most famous films are still behind a paywall, but still, dozens of their titles are now in high quality and with subtitles. Do you think this treasure trove of accessibility will last, or are we in a golden age of movie access that will one day end as corporations expand their greed? Cheers, Gaizo.
I actually think, bold prediction, I think what you're describing will continue to last because movies have less value than ever.
Yes. So this happens a lot with Indian films as well, is that the companies put them on their official YouTube pages because it's worth more to them that they log clicks than it is that there just be like pirated versions floating around.
It may not foretell a golden age of restoration or things like that.
Well, the two websites that he mentioned, Korean Classic Film, which has a very funny name for a YouTube page that is the official webpage of the Korean Film Archive, and they put all of their new restorations up on there. And I believe Mosfilm is the same situation.
Okay.
That they are remastering Russian films and they're putting them on YouTube. There used to be, was it Encore Plus that used to do that with Canadian stuff, and they don't anymore, unfortunately.
You know, God, I need to pinch myself because sometimes I get nostalgic. Sometimes I think, boy, I wish I could take that Midnight in Paris limo back to my childhood library and I could see what was in the Indian section now that I know what those movies are. But then I think, fuck, all this stuff's online.
Yeah, if you wanted to watch it, you could watch it.
I could watch that and so much more.
The issue is that you just get overwhelmed. Like I look at Korean film classic and I was like, what am I supposed to watch? Like I don't know what is the classics that I should be checking out.
Man, one of our listeners, a few months back sent us a YouTube channel that had all of these South African blaxploitation movies. Okay.
Yeah. That were done under apartheid.
Yes.
That's important.
Yes. And so obviously these are a problematic proposition, but there were a lot of black actors and technicians who worked on these movies. And it's like, what does that look like? Like South African blaxploitation movies. I've never heard of that. And there's a whole canon of them. Now I just need time to watch one of those movies.
And what will be the prompt to be like, I should check that? Because, all of us have different triggers of what gets us to watch a movie, right? And it needs to be specific. Like, there are some people in my life that if they recommend a film, I will instantly go and see it. Like, I will drop everything and go and watch it. But they are very few and far between, which is a little unfortunate, especially if they mention a movie I've never heard of before. I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah. So, like, those people, that'll get it to me. If I see somebody I am a fan of on Letterboxd write a really positive review about something, I will also go and check that out or put on my watch list. I'm trying to get my watch list to be a guide of, like, to challenge myself to be like, oh, this is on my watch list. I wanted to watch it. I just need to check it out now.
Good philosophy.
And yeah, I don't think that stuff on YouTube will ever go away at any point because, like you said, those movies are worth less. If you can't put them on Blu-ray and they can sell, there's no monetary gain. Like,
or you can sell them to Netflix
or something like that. Like, they probably see there's more money, especially in Indian film. Someone watches it for 3 hours than there is for whatever the nominal fee that a streaming service will pay you, because they will not pay you, usually the big ones, based on views.
I would say like 99% of all movies have no value, no monetary value in today's marketplace.
Evident, yes, that's what you mean. Yeah. And if you look at any kung fu film that is like a bootleg that's online on YouTube and it has 5 million views and everyone's like, they don't make them like they used to anymore.
I love that there are just completely parallel like movie watching universes where sometimes we'll go on Letterboxd and this Poverty Row Western has 10 logs.
Yeah.
And then you'll go on YouTube and it has
500,000 views.
500,000 views and 1 million comments. And who are these people? As Jerry Seinfeld said.
Well, they're older.
Yeah.
And they know how to use YouTube. Like, it should be said that, like, all these streaming services, I don't think we have come to terms yet at how limiting streaming services are about things that you can discover or even rewatch films that you like for the common public.
Absolutely.
That, like, video stores were an
egalitarian.
You got it, Will. Online is not that. Like, even someone like me, like, sometimes movies on a streaming service, like, which one is it on? Where do I have to go to find out? Oh, it says it's on here. I click on it. No, it's not available.
I know.
I can figure out ways to watch those movies. My parents don't know how to do that. So they'll just watch whatever's on the streaming service, whatever's available.
I think it's tragic that, for so many people, the horizons are limited to just the front page of Netflix.
Yeah. And I know that people will be like, oh, yeah, but you're talking about Blockbuster, and that was its own kind of, like, lockdown. This is what's available. And now everything's available. I understand, but, like, it has never been harder that if you want to watch a movie to find where you can watch it.
That's right.
Period.
That's right.
Even though that it's all available at your fingertips if you know how to go about it. So thank you very much for that letter as well. As per usual, you can send us letters at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. What are we doing on a Patreon this week, Will?
It's what we've been watching. We're catching up on fascinating, intriguing movies we haven't talked about anywhere else.
Nope. So what do we talk about that would interest people?
Well, everything from you talked about showing your child
Looney Tunes cartoons.
Bugs Bunny for the first time. I myself have some new revelations about the Joe Besser era of the Three Stooges.
Yeah, that what some deep research has unearthed of your own personal feelings.
That's right. I don't know. I also talked about Frederick Wiseman's Aspen. Rest in peace, by the way.
I talk about some streaming slop that I've already forgotten about.
We talk about the new Yuen Wu-Ping film.
That's right.
Blade of the Guardians.
So check that out. Patreon.com/The Important Cinema Club. And, last week, I think I derailed things a little bit because me and Will, before we started recording, we talked about, let's do a big one that, will get people back on board.
Let's get the clicks, finally.
Yeah, and
because we've been doing some obscure topics lately.
And I was like, oh, Lunar New Year. And we were like, oh, yeah, that'll be fun. And then, finally, though, Will's bringing me back to Earth. We're revisiting a topic.
That's right.
That's going to get the clicks.
Right. One for you,
Yes.
okay? This is for you.
Yeah.
And
Not me. You're not pointing to
Yeah,
me. You're the general audience.
Yeah.
You've been slamming on the doors being like, this is what we want.
Folks, it's the Bowery Boys.
Finally, an
Finally.
episode dedicated to the Bowery Boys. We need to have a real discussion here. We talking about the East Side Kids, or we're just talking about the Bowery Boys?
Or are we talking about the Dead End Kids?
I know, that's the thing.
Well, I think we have to talk about all of it.
All of them. I'm not watching Angel with Dirty Faces again.
No. So what we're going to watch is Dead End.
Yes.
'Cause-
that's the one. Dead End.
Dead
You
End.
need to watch it. I've seen it, though.
I've never seen Dead End.
Oh, okay.
I've
So
seen we're
gonna do it.
Angels with Dirty Faces.
Yeah. Are they in Angel with Dirty Faces?
They are.
Okay.
Because you'll remember that they turn on Jimmy Cagney because he went yellow to
Yes.
the electric
so maybe,
chair.
have I seen Dead End? Well, you know what? I'm
I think
about to find out.
Bogart's in Dead End.
Yeah, I think I have. But so that's where the Bowery Boys got started. Just to give a little bit of a taste for people to want to click on the link if you don't know who they are.
What I want to say is we've talked about...
but you do, because we're doing a big important topic.
We've talked about the Bowery Boys a lot over the years.
Yes.
We talked about them for the first time in our Poverty Row episode many
Yes.
years ago.
And we hated them.
We hated them.
And we said, who would ever like these people?
We said, we will never become fans of the Bowery Boys. I think that's exactly what we said.
Yes.
Well, here we are, baby.
Yeah.
Fans of the Bowery Boys. No, we've talked about them a lot over the years, but we've never had a whole episode devoted to the Bowery Boys.
And
that has to change.
And what's interesting about the Bowery Boys, for people that, if you are under 50 years old...
Try 80.
Yeah, you've probably never had any association with them. They started as these kid actors in studio pictures, Angels, Dirty Faces, Dead End, and they got their own series and they made a whole bunch of movies, but somehow they were so popular, they kept making movies where they played kids well beyond them being kids.
Yeah, they were in their late 30s playing kids, and they looked a lot older than that.
Alcohol will do that to you.
But yeah, and there were a number of different incarnations. There was the Dead End Kids, then they were the East Side Kids, and then they were the Bowery Boys. And the Bowery Boys is the Pits.
Yeah.
The Bowery Boys, they're basically the Three Stooges.
And these are the ones... Are the Bowery Boys the films? No, they're owned by a company, right?
Monogram.
So
yeah, Warner Brothers owns the Bowery Boys films. A lot of the East Side Kids
do
films...
they own the Bowery Boys films? They were Monogram Pictures?
They do. They own the Allied Artists Library.
Oh, that's right. Monogram ended up being an Allied Artists production.
But most of the East Side Kids films are in public domain.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've never liked Quentin Tarantino more than on that episode of the Pure Cinema podcast where he goes on for 30 minutes about the East Side Kids and how good they were.
Didn't he bring that subject up in, our favorite club?
Club Random?
Club Random?
I could not stomach a Quentin Tarantino, Bill Maher interview. Sorry.
I don't think, I didn't watch it, but I think it came up and Bill Maher kind of gave him a puzzled glance, but maybe I'm getting it confused with something else.
Wow, another reason to dislike Bill Maher. So yeah, we're going to watch, at least...
Wait, which ones are we watching? Can we even, other than Dead End?
Okay, so Dead End, I have a big Bowery Boys pick. The last few they made without Leo Gorcey.
Okay, so people need to know, the Bowery Boys was a kind of rotating group of actors, but the main Bowery Boys were Hunt Hall and Leo Gorcey.
Yes, and then Leo Gorcey got just a little bit too drunk to continue. So what if we watched one after Leo Gorcey left?
Oh, so, okay, which one?
Dig That Uranium.
Okay, Dig That Uranium. Now... Can we squint? Isn't there some Joseph H. Lewis Bowery Boy films in there that are okay?
So I think we saw Pride of the Bowery for our... I watched it for our Joseph Lewis episode.
Okay, so not that. Because I remember I watched... It was one of the monster ones, which are the big famous ones.
Well, there's Bowery Boys Meet the Monsters.
And then there's
Ghosts on the Loose, Spooks on Wild.
And that, a lot of them were just driving in a car to the destination.
What about Bowery Blitzkrieg? Okay, wait, I've got a Joseph H. Lewis one that we haven't seen.
Okay.
It's called That Gang of Mine.
All right. And here's the thing about the Bowery Boys. You look on Letterboxd, you ain't going to see more than 2.5 stars.
That's right.
They're never going to go over that.
But here's what's great. All these movies are 62 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Now, will they be the longest 62 minutes we've ever experienced? Yeah.
I think we're going to have a great time. So at the very least, we're going to watch Dead End, That Gang of Mine.
And The uranium.
Dig
one.
that uranium.
Okay, so I know we're going to watch more than that.
If you got a better one than dig that uranium.
So everybody grab that Bowery Boys book that you have on your shelf that has a checklist of all the films. And we will see you next week to talk about the Bowery Boys. Until then, my name's Justin Decloux.
I'm Will Sloan.
Thanks for listening.
Well, we both got a great new book.
Oh, yeah.
So this showed up on Amazon, or Shamazon, as I call it.
So this came to my attention because I was listening to an interview with Stephen R. Bissett, who's most famous as an artist who was working a lot in the 80s. He did Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, for example. He also did the anthology Taboo, and he did Tyrant, and he also appears on the Golden Ninja Video release of The Devil Bear, talking about Gorilla Suit movies. After he stopped being a comic book artist, he became a teacher, and in the last couple decades, he's become obsessive with like writing about movies. He's one of my favorite guys. If I see an article about him, I want to check it out. He has nothing to do with this particular book, but he mentioned it on the interview that I watched where he was like, hey, the joys of self-publishing now, stuff that otherwise you could never see, can come to the light of the day. For example, someone is publishing collections of early kaiju fandom zines. So that is North American kaiju-related fanzines.
And what are the years that it encompasses?
Well, so the one I'm talking about is Early Kaiju Fandom Volume 5. Me and Will were never in the trenches of this stuff. Were you, Will? Like,
no.
Were you aware of these things? No, because it'd be before our time.
But it's a collection.
So Volume 5 is famous because this collects one of the totemic, complete runs of a fanzine. Specifically, it is the Japanese Fantasy Film Journal, which is a fanzine that was done by Greg Shoemaker from, I believe, 1968 to 1994?
1984.
1984, yeah.
So this ran concurrent with like the later Showa era.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, what's amazing about it is, well, first of all the pages are lovingly preserved.
Yeah.
But it's like so much of what we read about, genre movies is retrospective stuff.
Yeah.
But what were the fans on the ground at the time talking about? There's very little stuff like that available.
And the Japanese Film Journal was the first one to ever do it.
And these zines, it's not like there was money behind them, so it's not like there's some great like archival, infrastructure behind it to make it
one
available.
guy who likes these movies and wants to write about them.
So this stuff could be dust in the wind. Mm-hmm. But thankfully, there's this collection that brings it all together. Now, you've had more time to dive through it. It is this thick, dense volume of fanzine. A lot of it's very beautiful. The illustrations are wonderful. There's a lot of writing. But what's been your experience with this stuff?
So I've always said I love older books because, like Will said, you get a perspective. Maybe they'll talk about movies that you never get talked about anymore because they were important in that moment and then they were gone.
And also, like, they're writing before the received wisdom was set in stone.
Yes. Like, I remember there's a critical film dictionary that I love that I believe was edited by Richard Round, that, like, it has an entry that's Mario Bava, Ricardo Freda, and Vittorio Catafavi all on the same entry. Because at this time, all these guys are on the same level, basically.
When I was writing the Ed Wood book, I was fascinated by the books about Bela Lugosi that were being written in the 70s because it was before Ed Wood had become the worst director of all time. In fact, Ed Wood was still alive. And so, like, they would interview Ed Wood. Like, he'd be in there and he wouldn't be referred to as the worst director of all time.
Yeah.
He'd just be a bad director, you know? And like, that's different.
But the thing about kaiju film zines is you ain't going to discover new movies in these because if you're into this stuff, you know about it. So what this is more is like a peek into what it meant to be a fan then, and what it meant to be a fan then in the 60s was long synopses about the movies.
Well, yeah, I guess they were hungry for information.
Yeah.
What you realize reading, old fanzines from the 60s and 70s is it was before the internet.
Before VHS, though.
Yeah, no, exactly. So people were just hungry for any information.
Yeah.
You look at the fanzines that Leonard Maltin was making in the 60s, and a lot of it is just filmographies because they had never seen filmographies of these people before.
Yeah.
They didn't know how many movies these people had made.
And so, like, these are full, basically short stories that encompass the entire plot of the movie with, like, dialogue. So were they bringing, like, tapes into the movies and recording it? Like,
maybe.
Also get, like, what's great about these zines, you get all the ads. So it's like, hey, do you want Marine Boy, the animated TV show. Well, this would have been the 70s. So what are you getting from this? Because you can contact them at Seven Arts Production, and they have offices in New York, Los Angeles, and Toronto on Adelaide Street.
Oh, hey, we should visit.
Yeah, see if they're still there. And then you actually get like a drawing of Marine Boy in this. Yeah, this stuff, I mean, maybe it's archived online, but I love to be able to flip through and just see like ads, people asking for stuff, letters. Stephen Bissett mentioned the first thing that ever got published, I think it's just a letter, not a drawing, is something that he sent to this magazine. And you can also see the evolution of something that a guy like clearly did in his basement that was handed out to a bunch of friends to what is a pretty slick magazine later on. Oh, I love this. The Making of Godzilla. And even like Making of Godzilla, the people probably did not see the original version of Godzilla if this is like the 80s or the 90s. Unless they got a bootleg tape.
Yeah, probably not. I mean,
it would have been the Raymond Burr version.
The original version of Godzilla didn't get any distribution in North America until 2004.
But yeah, I love this. There's a whole article on Sanrio Films, who Sanrio may be known by people as they do Hello Kitty, but they also produce like the Nutcracker film. So there's a big long article about that. Yeah, this is great. I love that it exists, and I'm glad that I have. Will I be reading it cover to cover? Absolutely not. I think I would go insane if I did that. Whoa, look at this Godzilla poster. I've never seen this one before.
Wow, it's incredible. You folks can't see this.
No, yeah.
But this is the Important Cinema Club recommendation of the week. I'm instituting a new segment here, possibly a one-off segment. Justin's getting just wrapped up in this book.
Well, there's like an article, speaking of stuff that did not translate, is like the Moon Mask writer is very totemic in like Japanese culture as a serial that had a kind of superhero that would lead to the tokusatsu, but that never gets talked about in North America. But they were talking about it here because there was no baseline of what are the important things and like what do you so much original art, which I love in this. And like you have articles about Gorath, the Toho legacy, but you also have an article on Doraemon, Garfield, Heathcliff, Tom, Bill, and now an atomic cat from Shinsei Organization. But yeah, it's available. It's self-published. And I love that you can do self-publishing like this because if you went through a major publication, there's no way that you would be allowed to publish this. No one tell Toho either.
I mean, it's flagrantly illegal, but that's fine.
Because, I mean, I don't know. It's like, it feels like Toho has just stepped off the brake recently.
I know.
And I've talked about this before. It's like you can get anything Godzilla, and they're also like in the fandom. Like you can get a T-shirt that has the giant
Godzilla versus the sea monster. That one.
Yeah, that one.
That bird. Yeah,
and he gets knocked away right away. And I think the shirt says like, you didn't live long, but you lived brightly, or something like that. Just as an image of that bird.
I love that bird. Yeah.
So Toho's probably like, we do not need to like lock down, so they're not really coming off after these companies right now.
That's so great.
So let it get out there. This is your chance to read it, get a little piece of history, if you will.